Argentina has won the Copa America 2024 deservedly. Welcome to the far too late review of the Copa America 2024. It was a fantastic tournament. For those that say that Copa America is lesser than, I believe that Copa America proved why it can hold up to any tournament, especially in the knockout stages. So we'll run by the games one by one, but also we're going to grade each team's performance in the Copa America. Unpopular opinion, but Argentina were deserving champions of this Copa America. So let's start off by addressing the critics first. Many people say that Argentina had a very, very easy path to the final. Colombia had to play Uruguay in the semifinals. Argentina's game against Ecuador in the quarterfinals was much more difficult than Colombia's match against Panama. Of course, Colombia was also paired with Brazil, which is a much better team than Canada, Chile, or Peru. But if you look at the strength of this Canada squad that could have very easily finished third, played much better than Uruguay in the third place game, as well as a team like Chile, who are objectively at a very low point right now. They're always a tough opponent to play, especially in the Copa America, and they showed it. They only conceded one goal to Argentina and to no one else, and that was, for anyone that watched, one of the most difficult games of the tournament. Many people say that Argentina didn't play well. Argentina didn't deserve to win the tournament, largely based off of one performance against Ecuador. Messi was injured that game. It was very clear he was far from 100%, and they were essentially playing the game with a man down. Despite this, they did what they had to do. They scored an impressive 9 goals and only conceded 1 goal throughout the tournament. That's an incredible record, and it showcases their attacking prowess as well as their rock-solid defense. And speaking of defense, our backline was phenomenal. Cuti Romero, Lisandro Martinez, Tagliafico, Montiel, Dibu. They formed an impenetrable fortress. Each one of those players had an excellent tournament, and they kept their opponents at bay. Particularly Tagliafico in the semis and the finals was solid, and Lisandro Martinez and Cuti Romero were just impenetrable. Let's not forget the mastermind of it all, Lionel Scaloni, once again proving his game-changing substitution in the final, and his ability to adjust tactics for each opponent was crucial. You saw the 3 substitutions in extra time of the final against Colombia, connected for the only goal, Celso, Paredes, and Lautaro Martinez. And the crazy thing is, many people think Argentina's era is over, but that couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, 11 players on their roster are under 30 years old. And that's not to overlook the players that are on the Olympic squad, such as Echeverri, Beltran, Valentin Barco, Thiago Almada. I don't think Barco is on the Olympic squad, but regardless, the future is bright for Argentinian football. And then when you look at players like Romero, Garnacho, Lisandro Martinez, Montiel, Molina, all these players are under 30 years old. Lautaro Martinez, Julian Alvarez. So this indicates there is a future here, and they will challenge for future trophies. Can they challenge for the Finalissima against Spain? Many people say no. I think Argentina is a much more seasoned squad than this Spanish team, and their experience in finals might shine through. So despite that one challenging game against Ecuador, Argentina's overall performance in the Copa America was nothing short of spectacular. In my opinion, they didn't dominate all the games, but they were definitely solid throughout. Their defense was solid, the attack was lethal, and their tactical adjustments were spot on. They're deserving champions, securing their place in football history and proving that their dynasty is far from over. Argentina gets an A. They lived up to their billing as one of the tournament favorites, if not the standalone favorite. Messi led the charge. They combined their skill, experience, and their tactical acumen to dominate their opponents. They were joy to watch and delivered as expected. They had a task. It was win the cup or bust. They accomplished their goals. It wasn't always pretty, but they showed that they are a well-seasoned squad that deserved to win in the end. Colombia, I'm going to give them an A as well. They brought their A game to the tournament. They had an impressive mix of attacking flair, solid defense. They matched up well against top opponents. They tied Brazil in a game that they were largely dominant. They beat Uruguay. They were just short of surprising Argentina. They didn't create enough chances, but they were always dangerous. They were consistent and strong performers, and overall they earned an A. I think they overexceeded expectations, which were already high coming in, and they were a delight to watch. And I think that this Colombia team, if they learn any lessons from this loss, they will be back, and I'm sure that they will get their trophies in the future if they keep on this trajectory. In my opinion, you have to lose a final or two or three or four to be able to then learn from that and go on out and win it. So their first final of many, I believe. Ecuador, B+. Ecuador exceeded expectations against Argentina. Perhaps they had a very weak start to the tournament, losing 2-1 versus Venezuela, but they recovered very well by beating Mexico, by beating Jamaica. Their dynamic attacking play and resilient defense made them a very tough opponent. They show great promise and were one of the standout teams. If they managed to come first in their group, they probably would have made it to the semifinals. They were seconds away from beating Argentina. Overall, that's a B+ from them. Another young squad with a lot to look forward to. Uruguay, I'm going to give them a B. They showcase their typical grit and determination, the garra charrua that they're so famous for. Always a tough team to play against. Their experienced squad was very tough to break down, and they had their moments of brilliance, but their inconsistency in the final third kept them from getting a higher grade. Of course, Darwin Nunez was very wasteful in front of net, and they did have their incredible performance against Bolivia. They were dominant against the U.S. They were tough against Brazil. Against Colombia, they failed to capitalize with one half with a man up. If they were more clinical, they would have won. They were disappointing finishing. And the game against Canada, they were also the second best team. When you couple that in with their high expectations of challenging for the cup, I think ultimately they were able to beat Canada, secure that third place, which is right around where their minimum expectation would have been. They could have done so much more. However, they finished relatively strong despite a somewhat weak performance against Canada's subs mostly. But Bielsa will be back. They got a young team. I think we give them a B, and they showcased what their potential is, which is a fair indicator of the B that they've received. Canada will also get a B from me. Canada impressed with rapid progress on the international stage. They played with confidence. They were solid. They were tough. They showed that they could compete with the best. They played Argentina twice. The first game, they surprised them much more than the second game, where Argentina was able to adjust to limit their play on the wings. Their performance was solid. However, they were wasteful in front of the net. Tactically, they kept going with the Lair and David duo, which wasn't quite working, and they kept playing it ad nauseum until they decided for the final game to switch up that duo, which should have been done before. Up until the third place game, they had only scored 2 goals in the entire tournament. The first one coming from Peru, the second one coming against Venezuela, which was probably the game of the tournament. They were very wasteful. They surprised everyone, but they didn't fulfill their full potential, in my opinion. They were unlucky to finish 4th, but they also had some boneheaded plays. They let Uruguay come in on a 2-on-1 in the 93rd minute of the bronze medal game. That should never happen. They should have finished 3rd. They were probably the 3rd best team of this Copa America, but these little errors caused them to get a B from me. It's their second major tournament after the World Cup. They got a very young team. They'll be back. They'll probably learn from their mistakes and hopefully will be part of the next Copa America edition. But let's see if they can go and get a Gold Cup in the meantime, get some silverware or a CONCACAF Nations League to complement their solid play and their potential. Venezuela, B-. They displayed a commendable teamwork and they were very resilient. Of course, they were probably the revelation of the group stage, getting 9 points. They fought hard in every match and they showed that they could hold their own. They beat Mexico, they beat Ecuador, they beat Jamaica. Though they lacked the cutting edge in attack, especially against Canada, they progressed to the quarterfinals. They did not rise up to the occasion. They showed their inexperience in the quarterfinal game where they lost in penalty shots and they strayed from the team that they were in the group stage. And for this reason, Venezuela will get a B- despite some excellent play from Rondon and Soteldo and just overall the collective spirit that they showed. Unfortunate that they finished on such a low note, losing to the rookies, Canada. Missed opportunity not to go to the semifinals for them, and for that reason, they get a B-. Costa Rica, C+. They had a mixed tournament. Of course, they showed flashes of their potential, but they struggled with consistency. Their defense was genuinely solid, but they needed more creativity going forward. Nobody really expected much from this Costa Rica side. The fact that they pulled off a tie against Brazil is very noteworthy. They proceeded to get smashed by Colombia. Then they won their final game against Paraguay. They played some exciting football in that last game, and they were rewarded with 4 points, which is very good. However, not enough to give them more than a C+, in my opinion. But 4 points is about what they would have expected to get from this, if not more. Panama gets a C. They showed determination and had moments of promise. However, they found it tough to maintain their performance level against stronger teams such as Colombia. They had a decent effort, but there's a lot of room for improvement. The fact that they beat the U.S. with 1 man up really was the best thing about their tournament. They did what they had to do to get out of the group. You can't lose 5-0 in the quarterfinals and get better than a C. And despite they had a bit of some attacking efforts in that game, it's very inconsistent, and that's why we give it a C. Brazil, C-. They're usually a dominant force, but they had a very underwhelming tournament. Not sure people expected much from the Seleção, especially in Brazil, where they have their harshest critics. They have a lot of talent, but they struggle with cohesion and consistency. That's a team that is still looking for their identity, and they seem to have lost and strayed away from their Joga Bonito, free-flowing football identity. They're trying to play a European style, a more tactical style that doesn't suit them, and it's just not working for them. It's a very disappointing outing from them. That game against Uruguay, Uruguay just played perfectly in the sense that there was no rhythm to the game. They didn't let Brazil play at all. Really not a noteworthy tournament at all. They tied 1-1 against Colombia, which was also one of the games of the tournament. Perhaps unlucky not to get a penalty at one point, but Colombia was the better team in that match. Overall, they tied to Costa Rica 0-0, which was a very embarrassing result from them. C- seems about fair to me. Chile, they get a D+. They had a tough time finding their form. Alexis Sanchez couldn't quite replicate his 2015-2016 form. The team as a whole, they struggled to compete at their usual level. Coming in, they were not expected to do much, but they were definitely expecting to come out of the group, and the fact that they failed to do so against with a group with newcomers, Canada, a team that's recently won 2 back-to-back Copa Americas. Remind everyone any chance they can. They're in a rebuild, and I'm not quite sure this new crop of players has what it takes to replicate the success However, they're always a tough team to play. You saw it in the game against Argentina. You saw it in the game against Canada. You saw it in the game against Peru. But the fact that they failed to score, for Gareca, it is a poor performance. A seasoned coach such as him would expect to move forward in this tournament. Next, we have Mexico. D-. Terrible. Usually a strong contender. They should have came out of the group or challenged to get out of the group. They were probably second best in terms of name recognition in that group, but they failed to impress. They managed to win a game against Jamaica, which was very unconvincing. Their performances were lackluster. Santiago Jimenez couldn't find his form. They couldn't find the rhythm. Very disappointing tournament for El Tri. That's a D- from them. The USA, they had a tournament to forget, and that's why they get an F. They completely failed to impress. They struggled to compete against their components. They couldn't find any consistency. They were the first host to be knocked out of the group stage at a Copa America. It's a tough learning experience for this team, and they played better than Mexico, in my opinion. However, a team that toots their horn as much as the U.S. would expect to go further in this cup, and for that very reason, USA, they were unlucky to get a stupid red card against Panama, a bridge too far for them, but the game against Uruguay, where they needed to go win the game, they end up losing the game. They were basically playing for the tie. There was at one point where Greg Berhalter was signaling to the team that the other game had tied, which would mean that a tie would be enough for them to go through at that point, but you can't play for a tie in a game that you need to win. And the way that Canada played against Uruguay kind of shows the difference of caliber between Canada and USA. But of course, USA, they have big name players. It's a big market. They're hosting. They toot their horns. They're the England of the Americas, for lack of a better term. They get an F. They started strong and just fizzled, and for that reason, they get an F. Jamaica also gets an F. The Reggae Boys, they found it hard to match the intensity and skill of their opponents. Their defense was exposed. Their attack couldn't find the back of the net. It was a tough outing from them. I was expecting them to challenge more. I believe they scored 1 goal and conceded 7. Very much a tournament to forget. They've been in the Copa America before as well. You think that they would find some sort of rhythm or know the rhythm to play, and it was just a poor performance, very regrettable, forgettable and regrettable. Peru also gets an F. They struggled throughout the tournament. They found it hard to compete. They were outclassed. They against Canada, they were just throwing elbows and headbutts and late challenges, and it was just very, very ugly, and they failed to compete against an Argentina team that was playing all their subs. Peru finishes with 1 tie, 2 losses. This is a difficult campaign for them. They're really struggling to replicate their 2018 form after the loss of Gareca, and this will probably be a tough decade for them moving forward. Not much hope there in my view. Bolivia, also an F. Challenging tournament. They were unable to compete against stronger teams. Their defense was leaky. Their attack lacked any potency. They need significant improvement. They also get an F. And finally, Paraguay, F-. Paraguay had the toughest tournament of all. They struggled in every aspect of their game. Very far from the fight that they usually put up against, that they're known for. They've completely forgotten to play soccer or football. It was very dismal overall. Very, very shocking to see how far Paraguay has come from the teams in 2011 that made it to the finals, or in 2015 when they lost in the semis to Argentina, or would challenge at World Cups. Just completely in disarray, Paraguay. So for that reason, they get an F-. In terms of the Copa America compared to the Euros, there's no doubt that Euros has more teams that can compete for a title. You have 8 or 9 teams in the Euros that can win it, versus in the Copa America, you have 3 or 4 that have a genuine chance, and those are Argentina, Brazil, Uruguay, and Colombia in this edition. and of course with a couple of dark horses. However, once you get to the meat and potatoes of the tournament, once you get to the business end of the tournament, quarterfinals onwards, the Copa America stands toe-to-toe with the Euros. Copa America can compete in terms of quality, entertainment for the neutral supporter. And I'm a firm believer, this may be an unpopular opinion, but I'll show you why Copa America competes and may even exceed the entertainment of the Euro quarterfinal onwards. So starting with the least entertaining quarterfinals for both, Uruguay versus Brazil. 0-0. It was a tough game. Very little rhythm to the game, but you have two titans playing in that match, culminating in an excellent Uruguay victory with a man down. Compared to the 0-0 Portugal-France game, I believe you have to give that one to the Uruguay-Brazil game, which was much more tough and a challenging encounter. So you have 1-0 for the Copa America. The 5-0 Colombia-Panama would be the third most entertaining game against the 1-1 England-Switzerland. Again, I believe you'd have to give this to the Colombia-Panama game just in terms of entertainment. The goals were skillful. Panama was still challenging. They had a few chances. It wasn't a typical 5-0 drubbing. Of course, Panama is a poor side, but they did entertain. There you would have to give it 2-0 for the Copa America. So the second most entertaining game of the quarters would be Argentina against Ecuador, 1-1. Argentina wins on PKs compared to the 2-1 Netherlands-Turkey. I think this one, the Netherlands-Turkey game, was fantastic. It had everything. Red card, Turkey probably should have won. That you give to Netherlands-Turkey. That's 2-1. The most entertaining game of the quarters for the Copa was surprisingly 1-1 Venezuela-Canada. Canada wins on PKs. For the Euros, it was the 2-1 Spain victory over Germany. No comparison there. Spain-Germany was one of the best games of the Euros. 2-2. Now to the semis. The second most entertaining quarterfinals in the Copa, 2-0 Argentina compared to the 2-1 England versus Netherlands. That you also give to the Netherlands. England, I believe that was a much more entertaining game. That's 3-2. The most entertaining game of the Copa quarters, Uruguay-Colombia, red cards, back-to-back, fights in the stands. 1-0 Colombia wins, but an incredible game, tough. Everything that Copa America is about was in this game. Compared to the Spain-France, also an entertaining game, I believe you got to give it to Colombia-Uruguay. That makes it 3-3. For the final, you have Argentina-Colombia, 1-0 game, but incredible in terms of drama, excitement, tense, intensity. That game had it all. Compared to the Spain-England final, Spain played well. England didn't quite show up the way they did in the semifinals. In my opinion, you give it to Argentina, Colombia. Maybe I'm very biased, but right there you have 4-3 in terms of entertaining games from the quarterfinals onward. Plus, you have the added excitement of the third place match, which is Canada versus Uruguay, which was a very, very entertaining game. So we give it another half point, let's say. Just with that alone, I think that shows that even if my view is biased, the Copa America is not to be slept on in terms of entertainment, skill, drama, excitement. The Copa America does stack up in the knockout phase. Of course, there's no round of 16. Also, you can make an argument that it's the top two teams go on, that it's much more competitive compared to Euros, where you have the top 4 third place teams that move on. Of course, the Euros, in terms of quality, you have 24 excellent teams versus in Copa America, you have about 8 or 9 teams that could be considered excellent teams. But in my opinion, the Copa America should not be slept on. Argentina champion. Cannot wait till the 2028 edition. Will there be CONCACAF teams? I would like to see that. It remains to be seen. Let's keep the 16-team edition. Argentina Campeon. Thanks for watching. Vamos.